I don't belong here. I belong out there somewhere, sitting firmly in my seat, looking at this stage. The reason I don't belong here is because I'm not an actor. I'm a critic. It may not even be safe for me to be here where actors gather, because actors don't always like critics very much. I review plays for a newspaper nearly every night of my life, and have been doing it for almost 20 years. Actually, I started out where I'm sure all of you started out, going to the movies. I grew up loving them. And then, gradually, I became more interested in the stage, not because I liked the movies any less, but because I found something on the stage I couldn't get from a screen. To see if we can find out exactly what that was, and is, let me go to my proper place, here, where I can become part of the audience. But wait a minute, not too far back. I'd like to stay a little close, because closeness is one of the things that the theater is all about. But listen to me, would you, Johnny Cake?
Would Pete say give a jig a half a chance?
Yeah?
Hey, is that the fellow that works for Big Fat Pete, sonny boy?
What's it to you, Pops?
Yeah.
You and the other joker better clear out of here. You don't want to catch colds, huh? Now, all of the time we're sitting in a theater and watching a play, we know what we're waiting for. We're waiting for a great big explosion. We've always known somehow that conflict was at the heart of dramatic action, and so this is a scene that we've come to expect and demand. Too bad Johnny didn't learn a lesson after what happened to you, Pop. Got to give him credit, though. Takes a lot of guts to try to put the bleed on Pizzaroni, huh?
Hey, you try to blacken that old Big Fat Pete, sonny boy?
I couldn't pull it off. It don't matter much now anyway. Do it.
That's where you're wrong, Johnny Cake. It matters to me. Pete, he's willing to forget the whole thing. Says the trick is not to take your jig serious. Huh? I can't do nothing like that, Johnny. It don't look good on my record.
What you want to do about it, Fooch?
Sign in both hands, Johnny Cake. Take it. Pops, you and that other joker stay put. John. I want you to lick that sign and paste it up there on your door. Start licking.
Foochie, I'll break.
Lick some more. Lick a little bit more, John. Come on. Now, real careful, like Johnny. You start walking to the door, huh? Paste it up in the glass. Now, come on back up here. Terrific. Sit down. Have a seat.
No, sonny boy, now. You don't have to do nothing like that, sonny boy. You don't have to do nothing like that. Not anymore.
Now, that was a vigorous scene from a very good play, Charles Gordon's No Place to Be Somebody. And it's typical of the open conflict that almost always ends or appears somewhere in a play with any energy to it. It's in the battle and the dueling scenes in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Henry V, Hamlet. It's in a play like The Great White Hope, where the contenders literally fight it out in the prize ring. It's one of the trademarks of drama. But I'd like to point out one thing about that scene you just saw. It can be done just as well in a movie. You've seen it done, one way or another, 1,000 times. It may not be quite as tense, because it's not as close to you in a film. In the theater, an audience tends to jump when a gun goes off, and you don't do that in a movie. Nevertheless, it's there. It's there because both film and stage have to do with drama. What's the difference between them, then? Is there any? Is there any reason for giving up the quick excitement, the fast cutting, the tremendous scenic range that a film provides so readily, and that the stage, the much older, much slower stage, can't provide it all? There's a difference. There has to be, if the stage is going to survive or have an identity of its own. Let's try to get at the difference by pointing out another old truth. There are at least two kinds of conflict that can be made exciting. One of them is called external. That's what we've been looking at. Physical people, physical bodies lunging at one another or using guns or external properties to do the damage with. There's also interior conflict, the struggle that goes on inside a man and may take a long time, growing and seething and developing before it flares into open action. This struggle may be as intense, as severe, and as important, I think it's more important, than the ultimate physical battle, because it engages the soul of the man, the psyche, the emotions, and the will at a very deep level of being. Here's another short passage from No Place to Be Somebody, one which is much more exclusively related to the stage.
I ain't been out of the house in more than 3 months. Well, not because I've been that busy. I've just been scared. But don't let me give you the impression that I'm still hung up on all that, what do you call it, Negro self-pity, or even that old you owe me whitey party line. 'Cause I ain't. In spite of the fact that I went to college and all that I learned there, it still didn't give me that introduction to success, equality, and wealth that to my parents were the most logical alternatives to heaven. Anyway, like I say, I'm going to leave that social protest jive to them cats who are better equipped than me.
That man is in deep personal trouble, perhaps in torment. Eventually, he's going to move on and out and join other people in combat. But first, he must combat what troubles him within himself. And it's this kind of combat that brings us closer to the essence of the stage. You can have it in film, too, though rarely so exhaustively or at such a deep level. Film keeps moving. That's one of its laws. It's called a moving picture. If it doesn't move, it might just as well be a collection of picture postcards or an album of still photographs. It's got to cut, jump, change the angle. In doing so, it doesn't often stay long enough with one man or one face or one passion to explore it as fully as we've been trying to do now. In film, this sort of conflict is most often hinted at. The stage, on the other hand, stops to investigate it fully, to be with it, to stay with it, to endure it all the way through. Maybe we can see this better in a short piece of film that the great silent comedian Buster Keaton once made. In a film called Sherlock, Jr., Mr. Keaton played a small-town motion picture operator who went to sleep in the projection booth one day and dreamed that he'd wandered down into the auditorium of the movie house, climbed up onto the stage, and walked right into the picture. Notice what's happening. The film is cutting from one place to another. But Buster Keaton is not in the film. He's real, and so he can't be cut. eventually arrive at a critical evaluation of the two forms. One is all fragments cutting. The other, the real man, the live actor, can't be cut. He remains himself all the time. From the beginning, the theater has particularly had to do with that sustained, living, unbroken self. That's why we can have such a thing as a one-man theater or a one-man play, with a single man standing there alone all night long, more and more deeply revealing himself to us. In one of the earliest Greek plays, the hero, Prometheus, was chained to a rock by an angry god because he'd stolen fire from the heavens and given it to mankind. His movement was very restricted for the whole play, but he could, out of his intense internal life, continue to defy the god outright.
Let the very air be rent by thunder crash. Savage winds convulse the sky. Hurricanes shake the earth from its foundations. The waves of the sea rise up and drown the stars. And let me be swept down to hell, caught in the cruel whirlpool of necessity. It does not make me tremble. Oh, holy Mother Earth, oh, air and sun, behold me. I am armed.
There's lightning there, but no guns, no swords, no conflict with other people. He's alone, and that is still dramatic in the theater. This internal life, sustained very close to us, can also be conveyed by people working in pantomime, so long as we're near them and stay with them, and so long as their pinned down miming tells us enough. Here's an experimental group called the Open Theater. Like many other adventurous companies all over the country, which perform anywhere they can perform, in garages, in lofts, in abandoned churches, in warehouses, they are trying to find the theater all over again, to dig at its roots, investigate its very simplest, most fundamental possibilities, to see if they can get it reborn, reawakened, renewed. In this play, The Serpent, by Jean Claude van Italite, the audience is seated right at the actors' feet as they perform for us the Cain and Abel sequence and dramatize for us an interior dilemma, Cain's ignorance of killing.
And it occurred to Cain to kill his brother, but it did not occur to Cain that killing his brother would cause his brother's death. And this was the manner of Abel's death, for Cain did not know how to kill. Cain struck at Abel and pulled at his bones and broke them in turn. This was the first murder.
And Cain said, there is no law, there is no judge. Why did he not accept my offering, and yet he accepted yours? And the Lord spoke within him, and God said, if you will amend your ways, I will forgive your anger. Yet even now the power of evil crouches at the door. It occurred to Cain that the world is created through goodness, yet he saw that good deeds bear no fruit. And God said, it depends on you, whether you shall be master over evil or evil over you. And Cain said, why did he accept your offering and not mine? And it occurred to Cain that the world is ruled with an arbitrary power. And Cain said, there is no law, there is no judge. Else why did he not accept my offering, and yet he accepted yours?
And this was the manner of Abel's death, for Cain did not know how to kill. Cain struck at Abel and pulled and pulled and broke them in turn. This was the first murder.
And Cain said, there is no law, there is no judge. Else why did he not accept my offering, and yet he accepted yours?
And Cain said, if I were to spill your blood in the ground like you do the sheep, who is there to demand it of me? And Abel said, the Lord will demand, the Lord will judge. And Cain said, there is no law, there is no judge. Else why did he accept your offering and not accept mine? Why yours? Why not mine? And it occurred to Cain to kill his brother, but not occurred to Cain that killing his brother would cause his brother's death. And this was the manner of Abel's death, for Cain did not know how to kill. Cain struck at Abel and pulled and pulled and broke him in turn.
That struggle is in one sense external and physical, but at the same time it shows an interior struggle. Cain's not knowing where the source of life is so he can extinguish it. Cain groping in his mind as he continues to grope in his body. And we see deeply into something about human nature we might not have thought about before. Now, of course, many plays use more central characters than that, and most plays use a great many more words than that. But at root, they remain just what we've been looking at, or rather, sharing. An action performed from its beginning to its end without interruption, performed in our presence, which is also not interrupted. The angle of our eye doesn't change, and this means many things. Since the angle of our eye doesn't change, and we're always looking at the very same space, something's got to change, and go on changing very rapidly inside our heads. Our heads are at work, imagining half the performance. At a movie, the imagination doesn't have to work very hard or be engaged very much. If the film says we're in Texas, well, there we are in Texas. If it says a building is burning down, we have the building and the burning all laid out for us. But not here. Not on the stage. On the stage, there may be quite a bit of scenery to suggest a British drawing room. There may be as little as a rock or a tree, or as in the case of the Serpent, there may be nothing at all. In the theater, it doesn't matter, because we are going to supply the rest. We're not only going to cooperate, we're going to collaborate. We're going to help put together the event, and when it's over, it's partly become ours. That is to say, this will happen if the actors are good enough and if we are good enough, for we must consciously do this thing together. For instance, the actor always knows we're there. Whether we're sitting on a floor in a loft or in a regular theater, he's always trying to do something to us, to learn something from us. You see, when he speaks or makes a gesture, he is sending out a signal to us.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else.
Do you hear that laugh? When it comes, the actor hears it as an actor on a screen can't. And he knows he's done or said something true. He waits for it. He measures it. He shapes the next thing he does around it. So in a very real sense, we're creating this performance together in this sequence from Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I'm quite aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you had been more demonstrative. For me, you've always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew that I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolen.
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
We must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married?
Well, surely you know that I love you, and you've led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you. But you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing at all has been said about marriage. The subject has not even been touched upon.
Well, may I propose to you now?
Well, I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolen!
Yes, Mr. Worthing. What have you got to say to me?
Well, you know what I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Oh, Gwendolen. Gwendolen, will you marry me?
Oh, of course I will, darling.
The audience reacts, the actor reacts to the audience reacting, and between them, a structure, an image, a vision is built up. This togetherness can't happen on film because the actor isn't there any longer. But in the theater, you're a constant partner, someone who tells the actor whether he's telling the truth or not. And so you and the players are really engaged in a contest, a struggle, to bring an utterly honest thing to light. Theater goes into the truth of our interior responses, our hidden lives, into what we really believe or can believe. It even, in a sense, helps us to know who we are by the way in which we respond. Because it can't move in the way a film does, it has to use words, and it has to use them far more richly. It digs for all the words that will unleash our most profound thoughts and fears and dreams and emotions.
What? Do you tremble? Are you all afraid? Alas, I blame you not, for you are mortal, and mortal eyes cannot endure the devil! Avaunt, thou dreadful minister of hell!
This scene from Richard III is very much a thing of words, because the picture is, relatively speaking, standing still. But words are subtler, richer, more complex, ultimately more meaningful than pictures.
Did Henry's wounds open their congealed mouths and bleed afresh? Blush, blush, thou lump of foul deformity. For 'tis thy presence that exhales this blood from cold and empty veins where no blood lies. Thy deed, inhuman and unnatural, provokes this deluge, most unnatural. Oh God, that mates this blood, revenge his death. O earth that drinks this blood, revenge his death.
By the time the play is ended, we may be somewhat exhausted from the sustained, close exposure to other human beings living at such a high pitch of intensity. But we've been nourished in our humanness in a cooperative venture with other humans who are present. We've come together to compare notes about the truth of things, to test an actor's instinct against our instincts, to join the actor and the playwright in open contest to see what will come out of it, to be with one another in a profound hunt for the core of our being. And so it may be all right for me, or for you, to get a little closer to the stage than we usually have been. If not on it, then right up against it, right up against the living, breathing actor and the speaking playwright. Because we've been joined here in common cause. We couldn't exist in this building without one another. We've been friends and enemies, contestants and collaborators. It's together that we've made the play.